Hi, I'm sayakatcosplay, and today I'm going to be showing you how I styled this wig for V from Arcane. And you might be asking yourself, hey, Sayakat, why did you style a V wig when you already have V's hair? And this isn't for me, this is for a client of mine. So even though I already have V hair, I styled a V wig. This is made out of an Epic Cosplay Helios wig base in the color raspberry, and so I'm going to show you how I dyed it and styled it. And if you want to make one for yourself and want to follow along. And if you like today's video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and like this video, maybe give the channel a subscribe, and here we go. So like I said in the introduction, I'm using an Epic Cosplay wig, and this is the style Helios in the color raspberry. It's a pretty layered wig, and the first step in getting this wig ready for styling is to go in and texture all of the fiber. I did a rough sectioning out on the side that I'm going to eventually cut really short and dye because I didn't need to texture that side. So I'm going to crimp the whole wig. I have a crimping iron that I got off Amazon. I'll link it in the description box down below. I think it was like $20. And I'm just going to go ahead and crimp all the fibers. I'm using a heat protective glove on my left hand because the iron gets very hot. And I'm going to work in very small sections and work my way down each section of the fiber and crimp it, and then just brush it out lightly just to separate out the fibers and fluff it up a bit before it fully cools down. Now I'm going to do this crimping for all of the fiber on the wig, and this whole process took me about an hour and a half-ish. And once everything is crimped, then I can get on to the rest of the styling. But I have to do this first. You don't have to texturize fibers on a wig, but it's become pretty common practice. And I find that the volume of the wig is just so much better if I go ahead and do this in the first place and texturize everything and crimp everything to make everything nice and fluffy. The next step for me after texturizing is to do a very rough sectioning and section out where I think different parts of the hairstyle are going to be, where different spikes are going to be. And this just kind of gives me a general layout of the wig. I'm just going to use very small little rubber elastic bands to section out where I think the spikes are going to be, how much hair is going to be needed or how much fiber is going to be needed in each spike. And this, like I said, just gives me a rough outline of the wig. These aren't the final spikes and final sections. This is just me kind of roughing everything out and kind of figuring out where everything is going to be and going to go before I get into more of the styling process. After I've got everything sectioned out, I'm going to cut down the side that's going to be very short to get it prepped and ready for dyeing. I don't need to dye all of the fiber, so I'm going to cut it down, not to its final length, but pretty short, just to get it ready for being dyed. Once I've got it cut all the way down, I'm going to kind of tape off the rest of the wig, so to speak. I'm going to lay paper towels all over the rest of the wig so that I don't end up dyeing parts of the wig that I don't want to. So I'm just going to protect all of the rest of the fiber that's not going to get dyed. I'm dyeing this wig with alcohol ink dye because I'm only dyeing one section of the wig. I'm not doing an ombre or dyeing the whole wig, which you might want to do with something like poly dye or RIT dye. Because this is only one very small section of the wig and it's very close to the top of the wig and not like at the bottom, I'm using the alcohol dyeing method. I also did this on the Docky wig that I did recently, so if you want more on how I go and alcohol ink dye wigs, I have more information in that video as well as here. So if you want to go watch another video on how I made another wig, I will link it in the cards above. So I'm using Copic ink refills and putting a bunch of that ink into a squirt bottle, mixing it with alcohol, and just spritzing that onto the side of the wig. I'm using a combination of apple red and dark red, and this wasn't dark enough. So I ended up just putting the dark red in the spray bottle with alcohol after I had done this initial pass. And even after doing a dark red pass after this had dried, I realized it still wasn't dark enough. So what I did was I took some fabric medium and some acrylic paint and mixed that together in a little bit of a darker color, like a dark reddish brown, and then painted that into the wig using the alcohol ink dye mixture to help spread that around the fiber and make it so that it wasn't like super clumpy or like really looks like it had been like painted. So basically I used the alcohol ink to distribute the fabric medium and acrylic paint throughout the wig fibers better. The drawback to dyeing a wig with alcohol ink and like acrylic paint like this is that the ink can run if you then hit the wig with anything that contains alcohol, like hairspray. So with this dyeing method, be careful because it can leak and bleed color, but only if you hit it with more alcohol. To avoid this, you can rinse the wig out or wash some of the color out or hit it with alcohol and kind of try to get that out as much as possible. I didn't do this because this is really not going to be restyled at all, and that these fibers are really, really short, so they don't really need styling, so you really shouldn't be using any alcohol-based products on this part of the wig once it's done, so I wasn't too concerned about that. And this is a wig for a client, and I warned them about the fact that the color could bleed, and they're okay with it. So don't come at me for making a wig that might bleed color. It's fine. After I was done dyeing the side, it's time to start trimming all the fiber and spiking everything. So I went with kind of a more anime-y, spike-y style, kind of trying to replicate how the hair looks in the Arcane show on Netflix, which is very stylized and very cell shade-esque. So I did a very spiky style. To style the spikes, I went in and trimmed the fiber initially and then went in and thinned out the fiber so that the parts that I was spiking would come into a nice spiky point, a nice fine point, if you will. And to spike all these spikes, I'm just using Got to Be Glued and my trusty, very disgusting hair dryer. It's disgusting because I've used it for years to make wigs and I don't clean it. Anyway, I am just using Got to Be Glued and my hair dryer to get the spikes to come into shape. This is a pretty common technique. And because the fibers are already texturized, I really don't have to add more volume into the spikes. I did end up teasing a little bit at the crown of the head, and then that ended up being too much because I made too much volume and I had to adjust it down and kind of remove the big from the wig at the end. But this is a pretty easy technique. It's just gathering the hair, bringing it into a spike, making sure to thin down the ends to get the spikes to come into shape very nicely and not need to really trim the spikes much. So I'm just going in and thinning out the spike, thinning out the fiber, spiking, repeat, and doing this all over the wig and making sure that the spikes are in the right direction and the right size that I want, and looking at my computer screen where all the references were, and doing that over and over until I get it into the final style. Thanks for watching, folks. I hope you enjoyed today's video, and styling this wig. Again, if you like this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. If you have any questions about how this is made that I didn't cover in the video, please leave a comment down below, and I'll see you folks in the next video.